On Fear and Greed this morning, a frantic last day of the year for federal parliament, with the government successfully pushing through legislation affecting housing and migration through to social media bans and changes to the Reserve Bank. Business investment stays weak as interest rates bite, and the world's first 24-hour equities trading exchange has given the go-ahead. Plus, the local share market hits another record high, and takeover deals in the home building and insurance sectors. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Thursday, the 29th of November 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, the main story this morning, nothing like a deadline to get things done. The federal government yesterday secured the support of the Greens and Independents in the Senate to pass 27 pieces of legislation, including reforms to the housing sector and to the Reserve Bank.
I'd call that a pretty busy final day of Parliament for the year. Would you agree, Michael?
Look, you know what it shows me, Sean? It shows just how effective people can be and Parliament can potentially be. Maybe we just need to reduce the sitting sessions down to just, hey, 1 week, you've got to get it all done.
Off we go. Plenty of horse trading yesterday to get the Greens and Independent Senators David Pocock and Jackie Lambie on side. Some of the changes that passed, thanks to the support of the Greens and the Independents, included a second board for the Reserve Bank to deal with monetary policy. That's in addition to a governance board. Now, that's all part of a recommendation from an inquiry into the Reserve Bank. We didn't think that was going to get through. Anyway, did yesterday. The Future Made in Australia legislation, that's about $23 billion over the next decade to help the transition to net zero. Also, the Build to Rent housing bill. There are also negotiations between the government and opposition to get some other bills passed. So these are things that the Greens and the Independents weren't so fussed on. The obvious one there is the social media ban. The opposition joined with the government on that one. There are also a number of changes to migration laws.
Obviously, plenty got through, Sean, but what didn't make it through, I reckon, is almost just as interesting.
So true. So the extra tax on earnings from super accounts with $3 million in them, that one didn't get through. There are also a bunch of electoral reforms around donations to political parties, limiting individual donations, that type of thing. That one didn't get through either.
You mentioned horse trading. I presume the Greens extracted some concessions, you would say, before doing deals, various plural deals with the government. What did they get out of this?
About $500 million in promises. That's not bad.
Good negotiating.
Yeah, including improvements to energy efficiency in 50,000 social housing properties around the country. There'll be retrofitting of public and community housing. That should lower power bills for tenants. In fact, Adam Bandt, the leaders of the Greens, reckons about 50,000 people will save about $1,800 a year. But to your point at the beginning, what it really shows is how much politics is about posturing. And when it comes down to it, deals do get done, and they can get done. And it's not just the government with the crossbenchers and the Greens, it's also the government with the opposition. The money for the Greens yesterday, now that came in exchange for there was a whole clump of 27 bills. And Adam Bandt negotiated with the government, said, we'll do these 27 bills because we're kind of comfortable with them if you can give us that $500 million. They've done that. The Greens can argue they've looked after who they want to look after. So too can the government. Very busy day.
Yeah, certainly is. Canberra is a fascinating place. Now, Sean, turning to local markets, the share market hit another record yesterday. Yet another record. How many is that now, with healthcare stocks doing well?
Just keeps going, doesn't it? The S&P ASX 200 touched a new high of 8,466.7 points before closing 0.5% higher on the day to 8,444 points. CSL, ResMed and Pro Medicus, which I'll tell you about in a moment, they all did very well. So too the banks and insurers. Underperformers included Wesfarmers, Telstra and Transurban and some of the gold stocks. Now, it was a bit of a surprise because of the lead-in from Wall Street. It just wasn't so strong after inflation data from the US came in stronger than expected for the second successive month. Now, don't look at me. I'm getting excited about this next bit because I ended up going down a rabbit hole when I was looking at international markets because overnight was Thanksgiving holiday. Yeah. And that's all about, football games, eating a lot of food, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I think of that one. And I actually thought, what's it about? What do they think? Thanksgiving kind of sounds religious. So I looked it up. And that's what it was. So it's the fourth Thursday in November. Farmers traditionally thank God for their autumn harvest. Gets more interesting. Apparently, its origins are back in the UK, and in the US, it goes back to about 1621 when a harvest feast was held between a native tribe and English colonists on that day. What I didn't know,
Go on.
Norfolk Island, which is Australian,
Yeah.
it's one of the few places outside the USA to celebrate Thanksgiving Day.
Really?
So they actually celebrated on the 27th, on Wednesday.
Why?
Well, American whaling ships stopped there regularly in the late 1800s and started the tradition, and it's just kept going.
Oh, there you go. Oh, goodness me. We are not even halfway through the show yet, and I've already learned something.
Nothing to do with business, economics, politics. A lot to do with Thanksgiving in Norfolk Island.
Norfolk Island, indeed. Now, immediately after the show, stick around, we've got heaps more coming up before this. But afterwards, we've got an interview coming up today with Darren Hopkins and Brendan Payne, who are cyber partners at McGrath-Nicol Advisory.
That's right. The interview is all about cybercrime and ransomware and all that sort of stuff. What is absolutely amazing, it blew me away, is the average size of ransomware payments and how many people are paying them. And then we talk about why they're paying them and the thoughts on new regulations. It is a fascinating chat. It's about cyber, but it's kind of bigger than that. It's how business leaders think about challenges they come up against, in this case, cybercrime. The bad news, of course, is that it's getting worse, not better.
Yeah, the fact that this is a 7-figure payout, a payment that they are making to these cyber criminals. It is worth a listen just for that, because these numbers are staggering and a little bit frightening. Still to come, Sean, we've got the latest on Star Entertainment, the story that just keeps on giving, why the ACCC is taking Webjet to court, and an extraordinary act of sabotage. We'll get to that later. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, business investment continues to be relatively weak, but there were some signs of improvement during the September quarter.
This is very important. We need business to invest in buildings and structures and equipment. Then you end up with more employment, produce more goods and services. It's how the economy ticks over. Private capital expenditure rose by just over 1% during the September quarter, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Over the last year, building and structure investment has actually fallen, though plant and equipment is up 3.4%. It's been a weak point in the economy. Broadly, we've seen a pullback in mining investment, and to a lesser extent, wholesale and retail trade, but a pickup in information, media and telecoms. That would capture all the technology, AI, investing, that type of thing. Future plans. So one thing about this ABS series, it asks businesses what they think will happen in the future. Still looking a bit soft, unfortunately.
Now, I mentioned Star Entertainment before. The boss of Star, Steve McCann, said yesterday that the casino is experiencing negative monthly cash flows and has asked for patience to turn the business around.
Yes, patience from shareholders, patience from lenders. Certainly the shareholders had to be patient yesterday because they had the annual general meeting. It went on for nearly 3 hours.
That's pretty long, isn't it?
It's really long. I mean, the first 3 motions, I think, took 2 hours. And the mood, not happy.
Well, when you think about it, if there was any company where there's a fair bit of discussion and a fair bit of probably a few views to be voiced, it's going to be at the Star Entertainment AGM, right?
Yeah. Not happy. Yesterday, the company said it had made a pre-tax loss of $24 million for the first 4 months of this financial year. It said revenue was down significantly and the cost of transformation and external advice had risen. It's exploring asset sales. It's trying to raise $150 million in capital from external sources. If it can do that, it gets access to a second tranche of a $200 million loan. If you look at what Star is facing, and Steve McCann, he used to run Lendlease, now running Star, he's got a bit on his plate. So the company's already been fined $15 million by the New South Wales Independent Casino Commission for compliance breaches. It's awaiting an AUSTRAC fine for breaches of counterterrorism and anti-money laundering laws. That's likely to be in the tens of millions of dollars. It needs to refinance $1.6 billion in debt for its Queen's Wharf precinct in Brisbane at the end of next year. Ouch. And it's still trying to raise that $150 million in capital to get access to the $200 million. I'm exhausted. Share price down 6% yesterday. It's about 1/3 of its peak in late July.
Now, IAG will buy the insurance business of the Royal Automobile Club of Queensland for $855 million to add to its NRMA brand in New South Wales and its RACV in Victoria.
Got the East Coast locked up. That IAG has the 25-year deal to sell home and car insurance policies, means they get access to 1.7 million members. RACQ, like NRMA and RACV, provides roadside assistance and sells insurance to drivers. IAG writes about $16 billion of premium per annum, and it's got a bunch of other brands like CGU, WFI, and Roland Australia. I'm going to spell that for you. Capital R, capital O, capital L, little I, capital N, apostrophe.
Can you imagine the marketing meeting where they're discussing what letters do you want to capitalize here? Let's just pick one at random and make that lowercase. That'll confuse people. Let's make it the I.
Yeah. Share price jumped 4% yesterday.
Another deal yesterday, Sean, was American real estate giant Proprium Capital Partners bidding $374 million to buy AV Jennings.
The price is nearly double AV Jennings' trading price. Its share price jumped nearly 90% yesterday, no surprises. Ever since COVID, even before that really, AV Jennings has struggled a bit. 20 years ago, it was trading close to $20 a share. Today, it's 62 cents a share. The offer is for 67 cents a share. The difference between that, the 5 cents, that suggests that there are a few regulatory hurdles still to overcome. If successful, AV Jennings will become part of Avid Property, which is owned by the Proprium Capital Group. Proprium Capital is actually a PE group. Avid focuses on the residential market in Australia. AV Jennings has been building homes in Australia for more than 90 years, 1932. So it's at 92 years, though nowadays its majority shareholder is a Singaporean-based investor, Simon Cheong.
Pro Medicus, you mentioned this one in passing earlier, Sean. Its share price hit a record high yesterday after the imaging group signed a 10-year, $330 million deal with a large not-for-profit healthcare system in the US.
I reckon this is my early nomination for Company of the Year, at least among the large caps. Pro Medicus basically brought technology to radiology. That's not quite right, but it's got this product called Visage 7. It's a clinical desktop application that radiologists use to view, enhance, and manipulate images from any device to make a diagnostic. So break that down, break marketing speak down, x-rays, stuff like that. They take the x-rays and the app allows them to be seen on phones, on laptops, and manipulated. Really amazing technology. It's up 150% this year. It's now, including 9% yesterday, it's now the 22nd largest company on the ASX, easily the best performing top 100 stock. I reckon outside the investment community, most people would never have heard of Pro Medicus. I remember about 18 months ago, someone explaining to me Pro Medicus was the next big thing. Yeah, I said. Well, wasn't I wrong? The deal yesterday.
That, Sean, is why we always say this is not an investing podcast.
Absolutely.
And you need to get your own professional advice before you make investment decisions, rather than listening to Sean. Aylmer over there.
Yeah. The deal yesterday puts it into 93 hospitals across 26 states in the US, but it puts it into the hands of about 127,000 people, like physicians, clinicians, those types of people. So it suddenly becomes this software that everyone's using. It's quite an incredible stock.
Yeah, it's a great story. Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe, Sean, disrupted the federal Senate for the second day running yesterday, yelling in the chamber, having been suspended on Wednesday.
After speaking with Indigenous leaders outside Parliament House, she went into the press gallery, which sits above the House, above the Senate, and yelled to the members below, "Free Palestine." She also yelled from outside the chamber on the ground floor. That caused the doors to be shut. Earlier, she accused Labor and the coalition of racism and trying to block her private member's bill about genocide.
The ACCC is taking online travel agency Webjet to court, alleging that it advertised flights without highlighting compulsory charges and then requested additional payment after confirmed bookings.
The ACCC claims that leads, or what you've just described there, Michael, I'm trying to get my head around what you described, but I think that's right. The ACCC is claiming that is deceptive and misleading conduct. Over 5 years, Webjet promoted airfares on its app, social media sites and website that excluded compulsory fees ranging from about $34.90 to $54.90. Not about $34.90, exactly $34.90 to $54.90. Michael. Chair Gina Katz-Gottlieb said a statement about the lowest price must be a true minimum price, not a price subject to further fees and charges. Yesterday, Webjet said it had fully cooperated with the ACCC before the legal action and proactively undertaken a number of steps to improve its disclosure of pricing and fees.
Turning to international news now, a 24-hour stock exchange has been approved by US regulators, allowing round-the-clock trading on Wall Street, which is a first, isn't it, for any major equity market?
Startup 24 Exchange was approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission and will initially launch in regular hours and expand to include around-the-clock trading from Sunday night through to Thursday night. While treasuries and other major currency stuff like that are traded almost continuously on weekdays, stocks haven't because of tight rules designed to protect investors and because of the complexities and time needed to settle trades. Now, in recent years, round-the-clock trading has been given a boost by the rise of retail investors who are keen to trade stocks outside working hours, according to the FT. Some brokers already execute customer out-of-hours stock orders in what they call dark pools. So members trade amongst themselves. A regulated overnight exchange will mean a big change because it actually lights the pool. It's a lit market where the trades and prices become the official record. Hasn't happened on a major exchange before. Going to hit Wall Street, and I'd almost guarantee that over time it'll hit the ASX.
Finally, Sean, I mentioned this one. This is extraordinary, this last story. A Chinese ship is suspected of severing 2 critical internet cables in the Baltic Sea in an act of sabotage that may have been orchestrated by Russia. We are just talking nonstop about these undersea cables at the moment. These are remarkable things.
Investigators believe that the Yipeng 3, a Chinese registered bulk carrier, deliberately severed the 2 key cables last week by dragging its anchor along the Baltic seabed for more than 160 kilometres, according to the Telegraph of London. The investigation is now focused on whether the captain of the 225-metre long ship was directed to carry out the suspected sabotage by Moscow. A senior European investigator told the Wall Street Journal, I quote, "It's extremely unlikely that the captain would not have noticed that his ship dropped and dragged its anchor, losing speed for hours and cutting cables along the way." End quote. The incident has caused concern among Western nations that Russia is engaging in what the White House describes as hybrid warfare. Kremlin denies that, but it's a story that is quite amazing. As we discussed yesterday, the thing about these undersea cables, this is the lifeblood of the internet. This is the lifeblood of communication. So if you sever those, you're in big trouble.
I tell you what, I have just a hunch, right, that these cables are going to come up on the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, where you and I battle over who has the best stories of the week. And it will be a battle just between us to see who can get to that one first, because we both love it.
Yeah, I agree.
Indeed. So tune into that one. It's on tomorrow. Before that, though, you've got 2 things to do. You've got to listen next to Darren Hopkins and Brendan Payne, cyber partners at McGrath Nickel Advisory, all about ransomware. It is essential listening for anybody in business. And keep an eye on your playlist as well at midday, because we've got a new episode of Ask Fear and Greed coming out. It's our bonus episode where we answer listener questions. Today's question comes from one of our younger listeners.
Yeah.
But it is a great question, and we will answer it. Well, we'll do our best to answer it at midday, so stick around for that one as well. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Friday, the 29th of November, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast, and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.